While the plebs were sitting in their parents' basements playing Elden Ring on their gaming PCs, I was here in my mansion playing a far more difficult and hardcore game. That's right. I was playing Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, which is a Nintendo Switch exclusive. Yes, after a handful of mediocre multi-plat releases, an entire 10-year span of not getting anything good, Monkey Ball is back in a good way. Banana Mania was great. It was a compilation game of a bunch of different levels from older Monkey Ball games, the first two specifically. Banana Mania was great, but it wasn't a new game, right? It felt kind of, it was basically something we'd gotten already. But Banana Rumble is a new game, and I can tell you, as someone who's gone through the entire campaign, all 10 worlds, I've seen like the base game, I've seen the credits roll. Like I can tell you that Banana Rumble is the second best game in the title in the series, right? Like I think the first one is still better because I really don't think the first can be topped and at what it does. But Banana Rumble is a really good effort, right? They have lots of great new mechanics, lots of great level design. Uh, I had so much fun playing through this. It's not as hard as the original, which is the main reason I don't rate it as highly. But Banana Rumble was fantastic, right? So everyone who knows anything about Monkey Ball knows how difficult these games are, right? They know that these games are incredibly skill based, are freakishly hardcore, and take quite a lot of skill to do, right? From slop games, with Elden Ring, like maybe you would fight a boss like 5, 10 times, right, before you get the patterns down and beat it. With Monkey Ball, you have to do significantly more than that, right, to beat some of these levels, right? Like I spent like quite a lot of time going through some of these late game levels, and I would say like the last world in particular is some of the hardest Monkey Ball I've ever played in like at a regular basic level. Like obviously there are super hard like post game stuff that I'm sure I still haven't encountered, but I was like pushed pretty hard with some of these levels. And it's worth noting that Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, even though it's not as hard as the original Super Monkey Ball, is still very much harder than Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. Right? I do think this is the big thing that really needs to be addressed. Because right now people are doing damage control and are kind of ignoring the situation in regards to what's happening in the sphere, right? Right now people are trying to say that like, oh, people are only don't like Elden Ring because like it's too difficult, but that doesn't make any sense, right? Like it's clearly fake and basic. Like if people were really giving up on Elden Ring for being too difficult, wouldn't they have given up on the base game or given up on like the Souls formula in general? Like to me, it just seems like an obvious cope to kind of write off all the very real numerous issues that Elden Ring has. And I do think the big one that I've noticed is that like Elden Ring isn't hard enough, right? Like it doesn't value skilled play. It doesn't innovate. It's not all that challenging. It's not a very good action RPG, right? It is essentially the Halo of its time, right? It is something that's very popular for superficial reasons that will fade away into dust in the next 10 to 20 years, right? I cannot wait to see Elden Ring like fade away like the first flame, right? It's been such a it's been so embarrassing seeing people try to say like, oh, I'm so hardcore because I play COD, FIFA, and Elden Ring when in reality Elden Ring isn't anything special or interesting or challenging, right? With something like Monkey Ball though, right? Monkey Ball takes real skill, right? With Elden Ring, all you have to do to win is just exploit the systems, use every tool at your disposal, have the best weapons, build your character accordingly, study boss movements, like, know how the game works, basically. Like, all you have to do to win Elden Ring is just know how the game works. Put in a little bit of effort into understanding how the systems and mechanics work, and then you'll just choose through the entire thing, right? It's not that difficult, it's not hard, it's not memorable or interesting or fun. Like Elden Ring is basically just an exercise in figuring out some convoluted mechanics that really should have been a lot more streamlined, right? When you compare that with Monkey Ball, all right, where your skills are pushed to the absolute limit, like rolling your monkey down an elaborate obstacle course, dodging presses and like making jumps across bridges, like narrowly barreling along like narrow platforms, like you really get this sense that like, wow, this monkey goes through significantly more than anyone who has gone through any of these FromSlot games, right? The monkey has to deal with like falling through the sky at like these insane velocities. The monkey has to deal with getting crushed and dealing with these crazy jumps and the fact that like these courses should be impossible, but by the sheer grit and determination of talented players, people who play genuinely challenging video games, like they will get through it, right? And and Monkey Ball just delivers that in a really spectacular fashion. I was very very impressed with this. I'm over the moon about it. It's one of my favorite titles of the year so far. Probably only might be third best, honestly. Like I would say like the only thing keeping it back is the length and like maybe the fact that the original was better, but like all in all, like Monkey Ball was just a real challenge. Having recently watched someone play through Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree and being bored the entire time, like you really get this sense of just how much better Nintendo gaming actually is than whatever like you know other people are playing, right? Like again, Monkey Ball is interesting because I think this is a really good example of how a game that nobody is talking about, no one cares for, no one like everyone is pretending is like not a big deal is actually way better than like the game that's going to be propped up as the game of the year contender this year, right? Like Monkey Ball, which isn't even like the best game released on Nintendo Switch in the past couple of months, right? Like Monkey Ball has already eclipsed Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree in my mind, right? It does have more difficult stage design. It does have better mechanics. It does respect your skill as a player more, right? It has more content. It has more things to do. It respects your time more, right? The lore is better even. Like it's kind of shocking how Monkey Ball Banana Rumble has such a great compelling story. Like especially compared to Dark Souls, which basically just amounts to Zanzibar, forgive me. Like when you actually like take a step back and really look at like the Nintendo Switch library, you'll find like dozens of games this year that are better than Elden Ring, right? You have Princess Peach Showtime, Unicorn Overlord, Penny's Big Wakeaway, and now this, right? Like, where does it end? It doesn't end, right? I've been reading Lord of the Rings recently, and Bilbo had this really, really great insight. Do the adventures really end? Not really. The the adventurers move on to the next in line or something like that. Like the idea is that like things don't stop happening even after like the adventure is over, right? It's a really cool like interesting insight on Bilbo and like the themes of the plot of like Frodo have to shoulder the burden of Bilbo's ring, right? It's and it's kind of like this, right? Elden Ring didn't just get stomped by Zelda or Mario or Pokemon or Metroid. Like it's getting stomped by like everything, right? Like there's really nothing that the gaming establishment can do to prop up this mid franchise because real gamers are going to discover and play games that are far more difficult and entertaining than it is. They are going to discover the Donkey Kongs, the Monkey Balls, the Metroid Prime 4s, right? Like the Mario and Luigi Brotherships, even. Like these are all games that are going to far surpass Elden Ring in every single way, shape, and form, and they're not the only ones, right? Monkey Ball Banana Rumble is a game that I think needs to be studied. It needs to be understood that a game like this proves that the from slot formula will not continue to succeed for very much longer.